Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
It's a beautiful day here at USA Global TV and Radio. We are so excited that we continue to provide world-class education, inspiration, and hope, and sometimes even a few laughs. Today's show is the Listening Mentor Show. This is a program where myself and the star of our show, Caroline Heward, share tips and strategies to have better relationships with yourself as well as with others. It's all about finding that inner peace and effective ways of communicating. Speaking of Caroline Heward, she's known as the Harley Street Stress Expert, and she is located in the United Kingdom. She literally helps people bust their stress. She's also one of our expert presenters on Talking Heads, and she's also the host of A Woman's Prerogative. And in addition, I refer to her as our in-house resident therapist, as she is always looking past the layers that we see that's available to the world, what's really going on inside. If we call it peeling back the layers of the onion, Caroline is the person to go to help you not only bust your stress, but to understand who you are and how you're making decisions and the choices that you're making. She definitely can help you understand each and every part of the process. Let's welcome Caroline Heward, the Harley Street Stress Expert. Hello.
Oh, thank you. That was lovely. What a beautiful introduction. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I've done a few shows with you here, so
that was such that I feel like I'm going a bit pink here. Thank you.
Sure. And by the way, even though we're on a different show, yesterday's A Woman's Prerogative was really quite insightful for a number of reasons. Anything you'd care to share with our audience about that show?
Yes. A woman's prerogative is literally that, a woman's prerogative. And we're looking at all sorts of aspects of how women are in place in work, in their personal lives, and how they respond and react to things, and our changes in terms of our social etiquette and graces, in terms of how women are received in different situations and circumstances. And last night we had a very, very powerful and quite insightful exchange. And we were all working in the field of holistic and mind-body connection and holistic medicine, a nurse, somebody that was working in soul work, and myself working with the chakras. And what was really wonderful is, even though we were coming from slightly different aspects, our story kind of came together as one, that we were singing from the same hymn sheet. And sometimes that happens. And what I find on being on A Woman's Prerogative, I have wonderful interactions, and that's what you get as an audience as well. You'll see the interactions as they happen, because it's a live show, and it's not something that we are scripted to do. We don't know what the conversation in terms of the interview questions are going to be, and so it really is in the hot seat, and very powerful things are shared. And what was really wonderful from last night is I feel that there's a possibility of some collaborations there. And so you never quite know what you're going to hear and what you're going to see in the chemistry. And I do love A Woman's Prerogative because it's very insightful. It can be topical, it can be whimsical, it can be serious. And we do find that the relationships and the collaborations that we have between us are super wonderful, and I love the show, and it's always different, and yet I'm always enjoying it for different reasons.
That was a great synopsis of what happened yesterday. And as you know, I'm all about collaborations. I love that. I feel like there are enough of us that have experience and are interested in lifting each other up. So thank you again for being part of this journey and for all that you do to share your experience and also to connect with others. So our topic today is misunderstandings create conflict, the importance of listening. And I think this is really a topic that hit home for me, especially after our show yesterday. A lot of things came up for me, and this is sort of a transitional time for me, as it is for many other people. And I think when we rely on text messaging, for example, or emails, and we're not having face to face conversations, things can get misconstrued, and then the emotion sets in, and once that emotion sets in, sometimes there's no more reason. It's just, I'm right, they're wrong, or this is, whatever it is, we start coming up with escalations, if you will, that take the matter to a whole other level. So when you think about conflict, Caroline, what comes to mind for you? Is it something in a war zone? Like, what is it that conflict means for you?
Well, it can be that you're in a war zone, and that certainly is when we think about conflict. We think about there being that conflict of interest or conflict in terms of anger or frustration. There can also be a conflict of a misunderstanding of a message, that one person, the sender of the message, wants a specific task doing, and the receiver of the message receives the information, the communication, in an entirely different way. And so both parties are in conflict of the expectation of what becomes of that message. And I want to cite a particular example because there was a conflict. I had a one-to-one schedule today with somebody that I met online on a networking event, a business networking event last week. He was very keen to do the one-to-one, and it was very technical. And he asked for my phone number, which I thought, well, okay, great. This is an old-fashioned, rather than a video call, it's going to be using my number. And he was a tech guy, quite young, millennial age. And I had a reminder of the appointment. And so there I was ready, with my phone fully charged. And I was waiting for the call. And on my LinkedIn profile, I had a message saying, sorry, I'm running a bit late. I said, that's okay, not a problem. And I'm sitting there waiting for this phone call to come in. And at 25 minutes past the time that we were supposed to have had the call, I go and check my LinkedIn messages, and he said, I'm waiting for you. And, when you're ready. And so he'd been waiting for me since 10 past 12. And then it was 25 past 12 when I saw the messages. I says, oh, I'm sorry, I'm waiting for you to call me. He said, I'm waiting for you on Teams. And this is a complete conflict of a misunderstanding. And we'd scheduled 45 minutes. Now, there was a conflict of understanding what he expected me to do and what I thought he meant. And he said there should be a link to link into Teams. I didn't even know what Teams was. And so this is where, sort of a non-tech meets a tech. And we landed up laughing about it, and we landed up in a really joyous and very wonderful exchange. But that could have become very heated. That could have become very antagonistic. And that could have been wasteful of his time or my time. But what we did was we understood the misunderstanding of the conflict. While he was waiting for me, I was waiting for him. And this is what can happen in terms of a conflict arising, because it could have landed up in a very different space. He could have got very angry that I wasn't there and I didn't understand, and he didn't. He was very empathic with me and very considered in terms of my misunderstanding. And I says, next time I will check in. I just saw that you wanted my phone number. You supplied yours. And so I thought you were going to call me. That this is how misunderstandings can lead to conflict. So it's not a war zone. It's just that we both misunderstood or interpreted the communication in different ways.
That's an excellent example. And I think also to your point, we don't know what's going through someone else's mind. And someone always said to me, give the other person the benefit of the doubt. But one of you could have been like, oh, he or she deliberately did this and now they're wasting my time and I'm sitting here. And that's how sometimes we get, right? We get so angry at the other person. Meanwhile, they thought one thing and you thought something else. And then you had to go laugh about it, which I love. So probably in your next interaction, you'll be very clear and specific, each of you, as to what you're expecting. But what I'd love to have you share a little bit about, because I definitely am guilty of this, is when we let our emotions get in the way. Because, and for me, I'm a very good sleeper, so thank goodness for that. But some people are not. Some people maybe are over caffeinated. Some people are completely stressed out, and then something happens, and that's the final nail in the coffin, so to speak. So how do we go about controlling our emotions when we're in a situation that is not going exactly the way we want it to?
Oh, wow. That's the all important, amazing question about controlling. And that's just it, controlling. And when you're thinking about controlling emotions, controlling something, it feels very in conflict before you begin. I've got to control myself so I don't burst a gasket, so I don't burst out and cry or be angry. The thing that I would share as an invitation, rather than feeling that you're controlling, is to pause, to reflect. And rather than, we live in an age where when we can get a text message or an email, that we can it's so instant that we can shoot off a response. And I always take a moment, even a day sometimes, to pause, to reflect on what I should say, especially if it's something important or it's something that's raising my temperature because, I'm upset about something and I've misread it. And it's really easy when we're busy and when we're occupied in doing something else to misread or misinterpret a message that's sent by text because the tonality isn't there and the gestures and the facial expressions aren't there. And so when it's flat in text, it's so easy to take each word literally. And I happen to know, because I've been doing a little bit of research and talking to people that are millennial age and Generation Z, and they don't like full stops. And if they see a message, a text message in particular with full stops, they feel that it's antagonistic and they feel affronted by it and they feel uncomfortable. And it puts them in a state of anxiety because they're not used to seeing full stops or question marks. They much rather have a line and they'll have a backwards forwards conversation. And so now I'm being extra careful now, especially if I'm speaking to or connecting and exchanging messages with younger people, that I'm watching the long text messages that full of grammar and capital letters and full stops and question marks. And I'm doing my best not to be doing that so much because it's seen as aggressive. So how to manage your emotions is to not shoot off a response, pause, reflect, reread it, because the first time that you read it, you might have seen one message, and the second or third time you read it, when you're in a different space, you might actually see a different message and you might respond differently. So to take the break and the pause to reflect on the message, and that's when you can internalize what you're feeling and thinking, and then come back with a proper message without being emotional or aggressive in your response.
I agree with everything you just shared, and I appreciate your viewpoint. I know for myself, I have been challenged with changing my mindset, and I'm wondering if you have ever had this or you've heard of this. But I've always been in a place from being in corporate where getting back to people quickly is very important because you show that you're truly interested, you're in your clients, you want them to know you're very responsive. And now at this stage, running my own business, I really feel like I have to take some time to deliberate before I answer. So sometimes people have said in the past that I'm very spontaneous, and I took that kind of as a good thing, that, yeah, I'm interested, I'll do this, I'll do that. But now I'm not as spontaneous and I'm more thoughtful, so I can actually evaluate what someone shared with me, as opposed to before I was very concerned about getting back to someone quickly, almost immediately. And therefore, I was showing them concern, but I wasn't really taking the time to consider what it was I was replying to.
That's so critical. And I agree with everything that you've just shared, because I was the same. When we first had text messaging, we are the generation that it came in and it was a new thing. And so we texted straight away. But that shiny thing has worn off. And what's happened is that people have an expectation that are highly stressed and highly anxious in high pressure work, that if they haven't responded straight away with a response, that they're not going to be deemed to be a professional. And what's happened is the working environment, the working hours have stretched, where people are sending messages and there's an expectation that they respond, and it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night when their working day finishes at 5 or 6 in the evening, and they're still getting messages. And people are responding. As you know, I've got a crazy timed diary and I will respond at different times. And then there's sometimes that I don't respond at all because I'm busy, I've forgotten. I've seen the message come up in the notifications, and then I've got preoccupied with something and I've forgotten. And I do feel that it's critical, especially if it's something that's important and something that relies on a strategy going forward for the benefit of both parties, that, I call it shooting from the hip. If you just respond in that spontaneous style and not think through what the repercussions might be of your response, I feel that can be more damaging sometimes than helpful. And so, if somebody's sent an angry message to me, it's so easy to quickly send a response saying, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. Hang on a minute. What's going on here? Actually incites them to be worse, to be more. So, I've actually even left sometimes when somebody sent a text that's very highly anxious, and they've asked for something inappropriate. I've left it for 5 minutes, and in that space of 5 minutes, they've sent another message saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm really taking liberties here. I hope that I haven't offended you, and I hope that you're not upset by the message I've sent. I should have thought about it before I sent it. And so this is what can happen in just that space of 5 or 10 minutes. So I do feel that it's important to have that pause, that space, so that you don't go too emotional. And at the same time, you are a human being, you're not a machine. And it's important to respect the fact that you might be organizing dinner, you might be eating, but they don't know that you're organizing dinner, eating. They don't know that you're on another call. And so, you could be doing something else that you can't send a message straight away. And this is about boundaries.
Caroline, you took the word right out of my mouth. I was going to say it's all about setting boundaries. And I think for me, and I'm just going to ask, maybe it's for you as well, given that we're not in corporate anymore and that we're working from a home studio, home office, whatever it might be, what I found sometimes is that people will take liberties, as you were mentioning. Oh, she's at home. No, I'm actually working. So I've had to say to some people, although I feel very, very motivated to get back to you, I am not able to focus on the information that you're requesting from me because I am literally hosting a television program. And sometimes people don't understand that. It's like, I guess I make it look so simple that I'm, but it's not possible. As you know, you have to be fully engaged and present. And so that for me has been somewhat of a challenge to try to set that boundary and say, my time is valuable. I am committed to doing this at this time. And we have television shows now 7 days a week. So, oh, it's the weekend. oh, it's a holiday. Well, no, it's not a holiday in the UK. It's a holiday over here, but my clients are paying and they want to do their show. But people have a difficult time understanding that. And sometimes I feel like I'm the bad person because I'm consistently setting those boundaries. But what I've learned to do is take the emotion out of it and just say, this is what I've committed to doing. This is where my mind has to be. And so I'm sorry, but I can't give you my full attention because I'm giving it to Caroline at the moment. So for someone who's not a coach or who's not a therapist, who's not a mentor, they are a person living their day-to-day life and they're not used to standing up for themselves. What are one or two basic things someone can do to set a boundary to at least make an attempt to avoid a misunderstanding?
If you are feeling triggered, and that's a therapy type word, and I've heard it being used quite a lot now. So if by the word triggered, I mean if you have an instant reaction or response to it that's negative for you or maybe for the other person. If that is happening, that is a reaction. And if you are reacting to something, then to stop before you respond and to reflect on what it is that's making you react that way, because your reaction is very personally yours. And the person might have said something that's triggered you to have that reaction, but that reaction is personally belonging to you. And the other thing that's important from a therapy perspective and insight and awareness is that no one can make you feel angry. No one can make you feel sad or upset. So if you are going into that space of saying, you make me feel angry, you've just done something that's really upset me, then it's important to look at that reaction and look deeply inside as to where that's coming from. Who else have you been with that you've reacted in that way? Because that reaction is very much yours. And to take a stock of that quick reaction and to stop yourself from responding before you upset the other person, because the person might have said something completely innocent, and because it's a trigger for you because of something that's happened in your past, then you're responding in this way, which is uncommon for the person that's giving you the message. And so, it is a bit of therapy. And at the same time, I want to give insight and awareness, because when you become aware of your triggers or your reactions, then you can feel more in control of them. And usually the responses and reactions that you give are from something that could have happened a long time ago when you were in your childhood, or it could have been in your young adolescenthood, or something that happened in your family or a relationship that's causing your response mechanism to respond in that way. And it might be a completely innocent piece of communication that the other person has said to you, but there's a trigger. And I think that the word trigger is actually a really good word, because it's understood. I feel triggered by this, rather than reaction. But if you are feeling out of sorts by something that somebody has said or done, look inside as to what's going on for you. And if you're really struggling with it, reach out and speak to a therapist and find out what's not working for you.
Thank you so much for bringing that to light. And you just mentioned reaching out to someone who's a therapist. I think it's important to discuss this as well, because this has come up. A number of people have asked me questions. When do you see a coach? When do you see a mentor? And when do you see a therapist?
Well, that's a really leading question, because some people think it's all the same. Some people think, I'm not sick, I'm not mental, I don't need a therapist. I actually had this conversation with last night with one of my promoters that I've been working with for years. And he promotes very heartily that he sees a therapist and he's done therapy work and coaching work. And he does it to inspire people to look at the things that aren't working for them in their lives. And it's met with a lot of, oh, so you got problems then? You know, why are you seeing a therapist? You must have a lot of problems. Haven't you got it all worked out yet? And it's the misconception of what therapy and coaching and mentoring is. So let's break that down. Mentoring, if you are looking for solutions to problems, to answers where you can't find them yourself. So, for instance, I would look for a mentor if I was doing something that I wasn't familiar with. So I've had mentors around me for my speaking to teach me, you know, sort of stage presence and TV work and how to stand and the, you know, sort of the fact that when you're speaking to camera and when you're speaking to a live audience, it's very different. And how a woman usually holds herself and that's mentoring. You're never going to find that or understand what that is unless you go to somebody that's skilled and expert in that area. So I have mentors that teach me that kind of thing, teach me my craft. Also, I do quite a lot of mentoring in terms of somebody can come to me, they have a problem, and what coaching does is it tends to draw out of them some of the solutions, and then the coach works with them to find the best way of moving forward through a problem. But I would say I'm much more of a mentor rather than a coach, even though I'm trained in coaching and counselling, is the fact that somebody will come to me with a problem and I will be insightful enough from my training to give them an insight and awareness and solution to what's causing the problem, which is not coaching. And it's sort of a cross between therapy, counselling and mentoring. And it's a balance of knowing when the person wants the solution versus just wants to be heard and to allow themselves to say what they need to say, to feel differently and to see if they can come up with the solutions. And coaching is, I feel, more of a questioning, you know, and looking at the person's, how they see the world, how they see the problems, and getting them to look at other aspects of what they don't see. This is quite a long, detailed, you know, question. And there's many people that ask, you know, what's the difference between therapy and coaching? And a therapist is much more looking at the underlying root causes of problems. So you wouldn't see a coach for bereavement issues, for instance, and you probably wouldn't see a coach for trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, because it might be out of their remit. But there are some people that have training in that area, and it's an aspect of the work that they do. So for therapy work, I would say that if you need more counselling and more insights in terms of deeper integration work, more healing work, that's when I would seek and look for a therapist.
Very thorough answer. Thank you. And I'm sure if we have more time, you could provide more insights. Something that, as a takeaway from that, I really like to have us talk about is I also think that misunderstandings can come when we cite what someone else said. So, for example, Caroline, the therapist, told me that I should be XYZ, and the whole problem is because of you. Or Susie told me you were talking about me behind my back. And so we take other information and sometimes we use that as the hammer to knock down somebody else and say, you know, in other words, you have a whole support team of people who are like pro you as opposed to your partner.
That's the win-lose and the shame blame game. You know, that's the I'm right, you're wrong game. And that's only going to land up in conflict if you are playing those games of I win, you lose, or shaming the person or citing somebody else as the seer of that person's wrongdoing or wrong approach. then you are in that right-wrong game, which doesn't work. And what happens is that's the path for more conflict and more misunderstandings and more control and misunderstandings or misconstrued misunderstandings where one person thinks one thing. And also, I'd like to bring into this, sort of he said, she said, that you could have, I call it Chinese whispers, that you start off with a message from the one person, and by the time it has gone through 5 or 6 people, the message has become very different. And it's a very changed message in terms of the original communication and the original message. And so when you are citing someone else, especially if it's hearsay or somebody, Sophie said this about Isabel that said this, and then I get to hear that you've done that. So what's when it comes like sort of 2 or 3 people, even one person, it can have your leaning of what you heard and your truth. And there is always 3 parts of the story. There's your truth, the other person's truth, and the truth. And they're all different perspectives, and they might not all agree.
And how many times are there that people are using that just as a way to put their partner down or their family member, whomever it is? It's all about power and control. So to me, a misunderstanding like that is almost intentional. It's almost saying, I'm the one in charge. Look at me. Listen to what I have to say.
Well, as you were saying that, my thoughts, as soon as you completed, was the word that came up for me was manipulation. Manipulation and control. And there are many people that will manipulate a situation for their benefit, for their gain, and to play the right-wrong game so that they steal your energy. When somebody is playing those games, they're actually becoming more energized from you losing and them winning. That the way round not being in that game is to have an awareness and have insight that everything is energy. So if you are being manipulative and if you are being controlling, you can be that to the other person, but what will happen is it will be mirrored back to you through other conversations and other interactions that you have. So if you're trying to blame and shame and manipulate a situation with one person, it will come back on you in other interactions. So the way that you are in anything is the way that you are in everything. So if you are manipulating and controlling, it'll be because you are manipulating and controlling yourself. So you're not having a great time by living in that construed space of trying to control someone else, because you can only control yourself. You can't control anyone else unless you make their life unbearable. And we have a name for those: narcissists.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. Exactly. And I think also there are cases when we're talking about misunderstandings, when there are misunderstandings and they continue to show up over and over again because both parties are doing the same thing over and over again, then at some point the person who feels that they've lost their power can just end up just succumbing to what I think is abuse. And they can't see it, but yet other people will see it, and then other people come to them. I mean, I remember being in a public place, I think it was a restaurant, and this guy just kept screaming at this woman. The manager finally came over. The woman was all hunched, but at no point did she ever say, that's enough, or get up and walk away. She just kept taking it and taking it and taking it. And so if you are in that kind of situation, to me, without judgment, without knowing, that seems like a red flag. It's time to speak to someone like you.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree with you more. And this does go on more and more, especially in our world change times, because the pressure of performance, the pressure of expectation is even more now than it ever was. And there is the pressure of all the external things in the macro environment that are causing things to break down. The other thing that I will say is that, and I want to give a different perspective on the person that's trying to control and being in the place of manipulation, is that they have learnt this from somewhere. And usually they've learnt it in their childhood, or they've learnt it in a relationship. And so they possibly have been the subject of being persecuted and abused and manipulated as a child or in their young adulthood. And then they think that that's the way that life is. So they've learnt behaviors and they've learnt the outcomes of those behaviors. And so then they adopt them because that's what their peer group have been doing around them. And so I do think and feel that many people that are in this, behaving in this way, may have come from a background in their childhood and in their young adulthood that they have been in manipulative and controlling situations where they've been in narcissistic relationships and being the victim. And so they've learned the hard way to control the way that others are responding to them.
Caroline, I love what you just shared. And I want to just reiterate to our audience members, because I've been doing this work myself as well for many years, and I still continue to do it, is let's look at ourselves first. Let's look at our own behavior, because we can't do anything about someone else's behavior. We can only say, you know what, I've had enough. I'm not dealing with this. Or what am I doing that is causing this to turn out the way that it has? What's your contribution been? You know, where can we meet in the middle, the old compromising? Because I think too often, as you always talk about, the pointing the finger and the other three fingers are looking back at you, we're ready to just jump on the bandwagon to blame someone else. But yet at the same time, after you've been in, I don't know if it, personal relationship, let's just say, if it's the same unhappiness and discontent, you continue to show up for it. So what is it about you that you've decided to stay in this dysfunctional situation? Because as we know, we can't get the other person to change. And then on the other side, I just want to bring in, of course, I'm bringing this in at the last moment, is when people purposefully do create conflict because they want to get out of a situation. And this can be, you know, let's say in a marriage, for example, you continuously do things to annoy your partner because you want them to leave you, because you don't have the nerve to leave them, or because of all the other reasons. Or maybe at work, you're continuously doing things wrong because you want to be let go because you don't have the nerve to do it yourself. What is this called?
Well, this is, in a work situation, I would call it constructive dismissal. You can constructively dismiss yourself, or you can have a boss that constructively dismisses you. And they make it so difficult that you want to leave without them having to fire you and go through the compensation package. And when you are doing it either way, either you're playing hardball and being difficult, or you've got a boss that's doing that in a work situation. It's the fact that not one of you have been brave enough to say, you know what, this isn't working, I'm sorry, I'm going to leave, this is my notice. And so the ego comes in to win-lose, so it makes it very difficult. And then you have a story to tell about, well, he was difficult with me and I wasn't happy, and she was a waste of space at work, the time management was awful. So then the stories come out, and this is where nobody really wins in that space, and it makes the situation incomprehensible in terms of living it. And so you want to get out, so you're almost making a difficult situation worse, rather than saying, especially in a work situation, rather than just saying, I'm sorry, this is not working for me, I want to hand in my notice. And I certainly did that in a few organizations I worked in, that, it wasn't working for me. I couldn't grow with the organization, so I had to move companies to grow and evolve into a more senior management role. And that's what happened to me in terms of needing that break. I wasn't getting the break because I was too good where I was. And so I had to leave to get a different job in a different company to have that more senior role to do. And in a personal situation, when somebody's making it about something you did wrong, sort of the blame game, you did this, you did that, this is not working, it's to make you feel so guilty that you just end it anyway because you're unhappy, they're unhappy. Really, it's about whatever the person is complaining about, it's the fact that they're not being brave enough to say, I want to end this. So they continue making it difficult. And this is where the misunderstandings and the conflict come in. And then it makes the other person take the action. So if you don't want to take the action, you're forcing the hand of the other person to take the action.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. And also what I think can happen in that case, if it's a personal situation, is when you find the courage or the strength, or I've got to do this because there's something better for me, there's something that's more in alignment with me and my values, you become empowered. But it's that almost crippling fear that you face, that you don't want to hurt someone, or maybe you're going to have to find a place to live, or maybe you're going to have to earn money, whatever the case might be, that keeps people in the place where they are. But when they face it and they come forward and they state whatever it is, that can be so liberating, and doors can open that you never would otherwise.
I totally agree with that, because as one door closes, it allows the energy of something else to come in and the opportunity. But while you're in a situation that's not working, all the doors are closed because you can't see them, because you're in a minefield of negativity that's not working for you. And so you're creating more of the negativity. And it's a feeling of trust, well, I'm not happy here, I'm going to leave. And taking that decision to make a change can also bring in opportunities that weren't there initially, that you didn't see. And when you've come out of the situation that wasn't working, suddenly there is a whole wealth of opportunities that weren't visible previously that now are.
And today's been an incredible opportunity for us to share some tips and some expertise with our global audience. Caroline, who would you like to contact you, and what crazy offer do you have going right now?
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. The show goes very quickly here. I never know what we're going to talk about in terms of the questions that I'm going to be asked. And at the same time, I always feel that it's insightful, not only for me, and enjoyable for both of us. It's actually enjoyable for our audience. Well, my crazy offer, I'm going to help you bust your stress. So if you are complaining about a physical ache and pain and it keeps reoccurring, it goes away and it comes back. If you are complaining in a relationship about something not working, or if you are angry, so if you have emotional stress, if you have mental stress, either anxiety, depression, or stress in terms of not being able to switch out, if you're not sleeping, if you have anger management issues, OCD issues, behavioral issues, whatever it is that's not working, I offer a 1 hour, yes, a 1 hour consultation over the phone or by Zoom. And that consultation will look at it will be a breakthrough to break through the patterns that are creating those challenges. And in an hour, we can do 3 symptoms with anything else that comes up around those 3 symptoms, and any more that come up if we have time. Now, my unbelievable offer is £50 for that hour. And that's just an absolutely incredibly silly introductory price. I've been running that introductory price now for a few months this year, and I'm looking at changing my introductory price. So please do take advantage of it, because that hour will be revelationary to you. And you never know, you could take a 9-10 scale pain down to a 1 or a 2, or it might even disappear. But what I do promise you is an incredible night's sleep. You can reach out to me on email, nomorestress@live.co.uk, or call me if you're international, +44. If you're local, 07523 120 189, or follow me, reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Facebook. If I haven't responded to your message on LinkedIn or Facebook, it might be that it's gone into another folder. So do reach out to me either by texting me or messaging me on nomorestress@live.co.uk. And I look forward to helping you bust your stress.
Thank you so much, Caroline. It was fabulous to see you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week on A Woman's Prerogative and then Talking Heads.
Thank you. It's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Please do reach out to Caroline, and also please do follow us on our YouTube channels. We actually have 2, USA Global TV and Radio, and also Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Okay, we're going to hear from some of our sponsors. I feel that it's really important that we pay attention to what the sponsors share, because they're all team members, and each of them in their own right bring tremendous value, not only to our platform, but to the world. So we're going to start off with Cybersecurity Made Easy with Dr. Felix Kravitz. So if you're a senior or you care for someone who's a senior, there are a lot of scams that take place via email, also via text messaging and phone. So here's some information that will help.
Hi, my name is Dr. Felix Kravitz. I have taught seniors and understand the crucial importance of online safety education for this community. I have also taught and worked at various colleges, universities, and training facilities in the Chicago region. My goal is to educate seniors, helping them to feel safer while navigating the digital world. Call me today to learn more and get started. Together, we can enhance our seniors' understanding of safety concepts when using technology. Contact cybersecurityeasy.com LLC by visiting our website www.cybersecurityeasy.com. Call us at 847-845-9360 or email us at info@cybersecurityeasy.com.
Hello, I'm children's author Diane Floyd Bain, and I am co-host for several of the USA Global TV and radio shows. I joined because of the purpose of the USA Global TV and radio. They provide content for the viewers and listeners, an opportunity for people around the world to have their own show or even be a guest on an existing show. We truly believe in helping others get their positive message out to the world. We also have the opportunity for the listeners. You can watch on several platforms, and on YouTube, you can ask questions and even give a comment. We absolutely love it. I love being part of the USA Global TV and radio because I love positive messages, and who doesn't? And we need more of that in the world. We are a family, and we hope you will join us and become part of the family too.